Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm honored to be here with you and to be joined by two of my colleagues to have a conversation and really an interactive discussion with all of you on Telco SaaS and how it can enable new value propositions and new business model and new as a service models for CSPs and enterprises. My name is Golnar Puya. I am with EY Business Transformation Consulting Practice, and I've spent my career really helping enterprises capitalize on new disruptive technologies to shift their business models and to explore new market opportunities and new monetization models to drive sustained growth. With me today is also Maria Azada, who leads the SaaS portfolio strategy for cloud and network services at Nokia, and she really championing the catalyzation or the facilitation and the drive towards the telco SaaS. I'm also joined by Mike. Mike is currently the global solution lead for EY's Everything as a Service transformation. This includes working with enterprises on their strategies and on their offers, on the tech and the architecture to be able to bring these new monetization models and business models into the market. So with that, let me set a little bit of context here. It is likely not big news to any of you on this call and in this audience that the welcome digitalization of lifestyles and industries is making enterprises and consumers to look for new business model, new innovative ways of engaging and monetizing new offers in the market. This is really setting the stage for 5G as a service models to bring forth this new wave of monetization across industries. At the same time, as a service business models that were arguably actually born in CMT and comms, media, and technology as subscription, as consumption-based models for software, entertainment, and connectivity are now increasingly present across all industries. And their convenience and the positive new experience, user experience they provide has continued raising consumer expectations, and consumer experiences have now become expectations in the workplace. So for operators, the need of the hour, for all the operators, the need of the hour is how do we modernize, how do we move up the value chain, and how do we work with the right ecosystems of partners to meet these new demands. And in this session, we will be discussing modernization and monetization efforts, growth use cases, and really the elements that could help telcos and enterprises become future ready. With that, let me, Maria, ask you a question and hand it over to you and ask you, why now? There's been talk about as a service, the convergence of all these exponential technologies, but why now?
Thank you, Golnar. I think the shift to 5G has introduced a lot of new things. It introduces connected everything. We're used to connecting just humans to humans. Previously, with 5G, humans are now connecting to things, and connected everything is creating opportunities, a lot of new opportunities for wireless carriers and vendors. There will be new use cases, new possibilities, and I believe that the wireless carriers and vendors will have to be prepared because we will have to follow that shift. How we build, deploy, and consume networks will have to change. We believe that the new use cases, the advanced new use cases that may come about, will require some dynamicity in the network. And with that, this requires a new consumability model and a new deployment model. I believe that Telco SaaS provides that alternate model. It provides the ability to access and consume your network services and solutions as a service.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. Maybe I'll switch to Mike and ask you, Mike. Perhaps could you give us some examples, some applications of these new models? How are they being applied in across industries?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share that. And I think, first of all, what we're seeing is almost every industry that we work in across EY, which is almost just about every industry, that every company, every industry is looking to shift to some sort of version of smart connected products or services. And what that means is it's about putting sensors out into the physical environment where your equipment is, or where your users are, where customers are, where your environments that you serve customers are, using software to collect that data, wireless connectivity and software to collect that data, pull it back into the cloud, run algorithms on it, do analytics around that, and then push it back down either to users to make better decisions, or sometimes pushing it straight back down into the piece of equipment in the field with controls data to do something differently. And this it looks like in industries, as examples, it looks like things from connected healthcare. So could be surgical robots, it could be health at home. You look at precision agriculture and soil sensors and drones applying very targeted pesticides, just specifically where it's needed. It could be smart buildings and smart cities or autonomous vehicles of all types. So those are the types of applications, and really it's truly everywhere. And what it means for CSPs is a couple of things. One of them is that from an application standpoint, to be able to build those, what you need is for the CSP to not be a back office communications and datacomms partner. What you need is for the CSP to be somebody who's with you, innovating 5G use, integrating that with the edge, cloud services, analytics, cyber protection for all that data moving back and forth. And it's really a completely different role that I think we see that's happening. And it's not the IT department that's looking for that partnership. It's the product groups that are trying to create those solutions that I was mentioning.
Thank you for that, Mike. That's very helpful. So if the value of data and the security of this data as it flows from different types of devices from across the network, of course, is the main source of the value. And if I'm understanding you right, it's not just about, okay, the plums are there, let the data flow. It's really about, yes, the secure flow of data is important, but it's really also a co-innovation model that not only is the data flowing, but we also have the consumable monetization model that we can together co-innovate in across different sectors, which makes perfect sense, Mike. So knowing that that the shift to as a service on the network and the network services is critical and is the foundation, if you will, for all these high impact use cases, some of which you highlighted, for them to become a reality. What are some of the implications for customers and for the carriers? If I may point that question to Maria, what are some of these new business models?
So let me start out by saying that enabling Telecom SaaS is going to require a mindset shift. The traditional methods of pre-building networks to forecasted capacities and demands is going to have to change. You already heard the many use cases that are about to happen. The demand for connectivity, the demand for network services is going to be sporadic. It's going to be dynamic. And there will be no possible way to forecast and build to that demand, because the need will vary and will be, dynamic as well. And so with that, we think that, traditional methods of building is no longer viable. We're going to need a new deployment model. And we believe that this is going to be Telecom SaaS. The ability to consume the network is needed when you need it, where you need it. I think the other aspect that I'd like to talk about is the collaborative nature that this brings about, and I think Michael talked about that as well. With that, because you're enabling, you're making it simpler and easy for your services to be consumed, you will enable the innovation to be more collaborative. You're able to launch services sooner and quickly with this new model. You're able to trial and fail fast, and then scale as needed, as the business is required. So there's no need to automatically build and forecast, build your network to the forecasted demand. You're able to be collaborative, work more closely with your partners, and you're able to enable the network at the pace of the innovation, at the pace that the innovation is happening. I also believe that additionally, what differentiates Telco SaaS is the ability to provide carrier grade network services and network connectivity. There will be some requirements needed by these new scenarios, new use cases, mission critical requirements that require high reliability, 5.9 reliability, low latency, security. These are just a few to mention. I think will be important and will be key to enabling successful new services in the future. As we move towards, a software as a service, there is, optimization that comes along with it. And I think the service providers can also take advantage of the cost savings that it brings, along with the innovation, the ability to innovate and collaborate with partners and vendors more rapidly and more quickly for the actual service provider and the carrier. The efficiency that it brings will allow them some cost savings benefits as well. And not to mention, a lot of us are talking about sustainability and what it means to the environment. With the efficiency introduced, we're able to reduce resources, power spend. I think there's a benefit also in that space for our service providers as well.
Thank you very much, Maria. That's very, very helpful. So maybe I'll turn back now, Mike, to you and maybe bring our attention back to enterprises. Could you share with us your thoughts and your experience in how are enterprises going to work with the CSP the same way they work with other types of companies like hyperscalers?
Sure. And I love the description that Maria was giving about the way the strategy for the CSP is going to have to change to serve the enterprise company differently. And before coming to EY and before becoming a consultant in my life, I worked at one of the big telcos and did data circuits and product strategy and then corporate strategy after that, getting into new wireless and internet services. So a lot of this feels very reminiscent of what was going on back then, when you went from circuit switch to IP networks and wireless networks and so forth. But I think it's going to get stretched really far in the way that Maria is talking about. So I think the thought that we have is from working with our enterprise clients that the wireless connectivity has become something not because, your CSPs maybe were building, network plans and capacity plans, and those were built because large corporations and maybe some consumer predictions, but for large corporations, we're going to build a campus somewhere. And you said, oh, okay, well, we need to make sure that we have good connectivity at that campus, either through edge wireless devices, Wi-Fi, and so forth, but also from the wireless network. And so, you could plan for that, or there's a stadium that's going to be built, so I know I need higher capacity. What's happening with these new applications is that it's not that predictable like that. So you might have a new mining operation that kicks up and you have all kinds of wirelessly connected devices that need this 5.9 near zero latency autonomous vehicles moving, or a construction site I happen to be in New York City here. So, a construction site that has a lot of connected equipment, high intensity wireless connectivity needed for a moment, and then it's going to go away and it's going to be someplace else. That's a really different type of demand curve that you're going to be dealing with. And so I think what the customers are going to expect is, if I'm doing something like autonomous vehicles or connected medicine, I can't have best efforts wireless connectivity and looking at bars. I can't have that. I have to be able to count on 5 nines, no packet loss, near zero latency performance, or sometimes almost just about zero latency performance. But I also don't need to pay for that all the time. So there's going to be a huge value opportunity for those applications where you need that, charge for it, and to be able to have the software as a service types of solutions to be able to manage the traffic and the levels, qualities of service where you need it, and manage it down where you don't need it, because you're not going to need that all the time. And this is what I feel like there's a real parallel to where hyperscalers brought data centers to, which, what is it? Well, it's, shared access to servers and storage, with bandwidth, maybe connecting it. But the difference becomes when you need the secure, reliable, low latency, and when you need to, as Maria said, I think a very important piece of this is to run a pilot, try something in a particular geography without subscribing to the entire service, but you just want to be able to pilot something and give it a try and connect up several different technologies that might cut across 5G, edge, IoT, cloud, analytics, and all of that with a software application that the customers of the CSP, the enterprises, are going to want to do that, because they don't know that these solutions are going to fully work. There's technology risk, market adoption risk. It's harder to sell these kind of solutions and to prove the value of them. So you're going to have to learn how to do pilots and test things, turn them up, turn them off. And then some of them, as I said, are going to be, happening episodically, in forestry, construction and mining, oil and gas, disaster recovery. And those are going to be points at which you could probably get a lot of high value from having the connectivity from the carriers and the services when you need them. And then at some point you may want to turn it off and shift it someplace else. And that's where the SaaS element of this is going to be so important.
Very, very helpful, Mike. Thank you for that. So let me ask you, change the conversation a little bit, in that you both talked about use cases and the opportunity and how innovative and disruptive it could be across industries. For CSPs in particular, they have had an eye on these new pockets of value emerging, if you will, meaning they do see the opportunity, and as 5G, IoT, AI, and multi-cloud have all advanced and converged, all these new pockets of value that are emerging are in the purview of CSPs, if you will. And CSPs were the enablers of value creation of trillions that many platform companies realize, yet CSPs, even though they were the enablers, weren't able to capture their fair share, I would say. So how is it different this time? What are the barriers? What are the challenges that CSPs would have to face to actually capture, enable more value creation, but also capture more of this value that they're creating? And I'd love to get your sense on, not just the technology element, because technology might be one of the hurdles, but oftentimes not the main hurdle to value realization. So we'd love to get your perspective on how can they do things differently this time, and how do they overcome the challenges?
Yeah, I'm just kind of, as you asked the question, I'm thinking about my personal experience, which was, maybe wave 1.0 of moving CSPs into new levels of services, internet services and wireless services. And I think we were really asking ourselves the exact same questions back then. And there was some good motion, some good things happened certainly, and it fueled the entire industry. But I think you're right that there could have been more value capture. And I actually think industries could have moved faster with a better boost and a better push from the carriers. So I think what's different this time is that it kind of, we've learned from that, and it goes all the way back to the way you think about what your product is. So rather than thinking of the networks as just a capital intensive physical asset, that the networks themselves need to be thought of as just as much, the connectivity and the physical network asset that you have, but has to be the software and the solutions that come over the top of that. And not that, I think at one point carriers were pushing really far up the stack and trying to do cloud services and things that the hyperscalers are really best in the world at doing today. That was a difficult move. But there's so much complexity in getting to these complete stacks of solutions that it doesn't mean going all the way out and being vertical markets, totally, focused on every application area. But I do think it'll be very important for the carriers to look for those elements of cybersecurity, of the agile services that you could turn on and off, the ability to be able to have slider switches in a sense that are attached to the commercial model, that if you need the zero latency and high density for a period of time, that you could slide that up and pay for it. And if you don't need that, you can slide it back down, or that the billing automatically moves on a consumption and usage basis. That's going to allow the carrier to take a lot more of the value out of the value chain where it's warranted. And I think we still don't even really know all of the applications that'll be there, but there's probably something to be said for playing a role in the integration of wide area wireless connectivity, which the carrier is good at, and the indoor systems and edge, and being a part of that, because those two worlds have been very separate. And I think they've been in terrestrial data connectivity, they've been very separate as well. I think there's going to be a merging of those two worlds, because we're going to need a seamless connectivity between both of those. And I know I've used the example a few times, but it's top of mind for some particular reasons because of the clients I'm working with. But when you send a vehicle from the service bay in a mining operation across, you can have very good wireless connectivity. You go outside, you might not have that, and the vehicle is traversing a long distance. You might need a 5G connectivity to it, and then the vehicle goes underground, and you need to go back to some sort of edge wireless connectivity if you're going to do that. That has to be seamless, for the enterprise application to actually work. So those are huge opportunities for carriers to be a part of that. But it's going to take a different mindset shift on that solution selling. Even as I say that, I feel like it's the same words coming out of my mouth that we talked about in the 90s, but it is the same. It's, getting to solution selling, getting to enterprise value, working with the other technology players in the ecosystem, not thinking of T&T as like telecom and technologies being separate. It's one thing. It's all the technology, the software, the cloud, the IoT devices, the network. It's all just one technology platform that's seamless, to be able to fuel these enterprise solutions in the future. So it's a real shift if it's going to work, which I think it will.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mike, for that. And maybe if we have time, I'll come back with some questions on this topic. Let me ask one more question from Maria, actually. So, what about building the network of the future today? How should CSPs or telcos get started now to be prepared for this future that we're all talking about?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up a little on what Michael has said. I think previously, network providers and CSPs have been focused solely on building the network. In fact, just building the network. There's an opportunity now with a shift to SaaS in that you're able to focus more on these new revenue generating opportunities, these new use cases, these new collaborative engagements, rather than just building your network. Because with Telco SaaS, what that avails you is access to your network and the ability for you to enable access to, enable to resell and allow your network to be consumed as a service by these new enterprises. And we can help them solve the carrier grade capabilities that they need to support these services as well. And so it allows you to be in the game and to be part of that innovation, to be able you to connect, the campus and wide area networks together, try to resolve what these issues are, try to get that connectivity settled. And by, enabling the easier consumption of the network, which is what Telco SaaS does, this puts you in a good position to help and solve these problems of the future. And, so where do we start? Where do we start as, because your question, Golnar, was how do we start laying that out today? And I think what's critically important for network providers is to enable that extreme automation in your network. Try to seed that and build that today to enable the dynamicity and flexibility needed to support the advanced use cases of the future. Start thinking about how to make and move your network operations, make them smart, try to introduce operational autonomy, again, so that you can deliver new services flexibly and at scale. This will require analytics. And we all know that this does not happen overnight. These algorithms will take time to perfect. You're going to have to start collecting information and data to enable and to adjust the types of use cases that you will be working with your clients. So you have to implement intelligence everywhere in your network, in every aspect of your network to enable this. Another point that I'd like to mention is, I talked about connected everything. Automated security is going to be a necessity. With the soaring number of connections that are expected in 5G, we would have to automatically secure these endpoints all the way from the endpoint, the device, all the way to the cloud, into the network functions, all the way to where it traverses it, where it needs to communicate with. Today, security is a very heavy-duty exercise. There are not a lot of trained professionals. I think with automated security solutions, you can help, provide confidence, again, with your solution as well, and enable that easily with your network. So I think as we move forward, we have to make the network more consumable. We have to allow the innovation and the co-innovation and the collaboration with our partners. We have to work very closely with them. And by shifting towards a new deployment model, a new telco SaaS model, where you're more focused on, you can shift your focus more to these new opportunities rather than just building your network. Try to unlock the true potential of your network by making it more consumable and shift to Telecom SaaS. I think you can be more proactive, start investing in your future today, and invest in these new functions that we actually have with Nokia SaaS. Analytics, security, these are available now. And as you move forward, the more advanced use cases will become available over time. And I think it's critical to start now and not wait, 3-5 years later, or else, the revenue generating opportunity may go elsewhere. You want to be part of this next gen innovation.
Thank you very much for that, Maria. Mike, anything to add on that point before we go into opening it up to questions?
Sure. I'm thinking about what Maria has been talking about, and maybe I'll cheat and jump forward a little bit into one of the questions, but Maria started to jump on this too, was, what kind of talent profile is the industry going to need to be able to deliver on this? And I think there's a difference that for new people coming into the industry, first of all, they should think they're jumping into a tech industry job, just like any other tech industry job. It should feel that way for the young people that are coming in. I think having the skills of not just hardware, networks, and quality. So 5 nines quality. We can't let go of that, because as we said earlier, that all these industries are going to depend on that. So it's not like we want to lose that. But I think in addition to, there's an element of how do we get people in that feel like they're going to have an extremely robust software development capability and innovation labs capability that they could start to build and muscles to grow, as they come into the telco industry. Data and analytics, is going to be so important. And it's not like, we aren't bringing those into the industry today, but I think it's going to be this telecom SaaS play is going to need new blood of those type of people. And one of the, even putting telecom and SaaS together almost feels like a tension in and of itself, and uncomfortable, because SaaS, I want to be able to launch a product and I know for a fact it's going to have flaws in it. But no big deal, because tomorrow morning I'm going to have a patch that comes through and it fixes it all, and I'm just going to keep going. And the idea is to get to market as fast as you can, minimum viable product, fix it on the fly as you go, make your customer aware of where there may be things that they need to watch out for. Telecom is plan for it perfectly, build it perfect, engineer it perfectly, build it perfectly, run it perfectly where it never goes down. And that takes a long time. It's very slow to get to new products and services. So that tension between telecom SaaS, is going to exist for a while. And I think the new people that we bring in and the people who are leading them need to be thoughtful of that and realize that that's going to be the magic. If the CSPs that figure out how to bring those two worlds together and do it effectively are going to be the ones that get to the higher value, and not just be the carrier of data, but to be somebody that's actually processing and doing analytics and helping to manage the data.
I think, like I said earlier, it's going to be a mindset shift. It's like oil and water. We're so used to these traditional methods of building to perfection, and the new use cases of the future are going to be trial and error, right? There's no killer use case that can be pre-identified right off the bat. I think it'll take time, it'll take cycles, and we want to be able to do this. We want the service provider to be part of this journey and not have all this innovation be developed around them and above them. We think there's a good role for the service providers. They understand the use cases. They're very difficult use cases, like Michael mentioned, connecting, allowing connectivity as you move and roam from different, from edge to a wide area network and back. And I mean, the use cases could just completely be complex. And the service provider does have an important role here to play. The fragmentation of the networks, the ability to connect and enable carrier grade, keep that seamlessness, keep that as if it were built to perfection, is going to be key and going to be an important role to play in the future as these new services come to life.
Thank you, Maria and Mike. You both raised some very, very good topics and considerations. And if I complement all that you're saying, some of the secrets to success from my experience with clients is, an iterative approach in the market. Get into the market fast and start learning as quickly as you can. As you said, Maria, it's a culture of experimentation, and that experimentation cannot be done in siloed. So the more successful cases I've seen is that when that experimentation and that co-creation is done with the service provider in the market, not just as the backbone, but actually as part of that exploration and testing. So again, all about iterating in the market, all about the learning opportunity from the data as more and more users use these use cases, so you can continuously iterate with your service provider. So I agree with you. Mindset shift, operating model shift, the days of let me get the user requirements to perfection, then hand it over to the wall are long gone. Is not the right cycle for innovation. So thank you both very much. Very insightful. If you're okay, I'd like to open it up to some questions from our audience. So, Maria, there seems to be a question. You alluded to it. I'll maybe highlight a question for you in particular. So the foundation to support these new services, the network infrastructure has to be built for. So why are we saying the focus can shift to the services? Shouldn't it be the other way around? So the foundation and then the services on top, they're asking, and what shouldn't it be the other way around?
So is the question to build the infrastructure first before the service? I think what we're saying with Telecom SaaS is that these new services are not going to be predictable. They're going to be dynamic. The way they consume capacity and connectivity and quality of service will vary depending on the use case. So there's no possible way to pre-build for an event that you know is happening in the middle of Kansas. It's going to be very dynamic, and what we need to do as telco SaaS providers is to have these enablers, and be able to stitch the availability and the capacity to these carrier grade requirements, enable them to the use case that's being provided. It's not pre-built. It's consumed on demand as needed, which is what Telecom SaaS provides. You don't have to pre-build a network that sits there forever like we did in the past, right? In the past, the way networks were built were built to we have this number of people in this city. Let's build to the max capacity of communication lines that we can support. The use case and scenarios have changed. It's not just human communications. There are things being connected. The type of activity needed between humans and things are all going to change. Where you're going to need the capacity is going to be sporadic. It's going to be very difficult to pre-build and forecast that. So I think there needs to be a shift in the deployment model. It will be very difficult to pre-build a network. And I'm thinking futuristic, the use cases in the future. Today, we're not there yet, but we'd like to enable these new use cases, these metaverse type use cases where I'm walking in the middle of the city, and I'd like to get, you're going to need additional capacity. What if all of a sudden there are not millions, but hundreds of people there, they're all going to need the same capacity. You can't really forecast movement and where people go. So I think the new use cases of the future will require sporadic and dynamic connectivity, and it will require a new consumability model, a new deployment model for the network. There is no way we can pre-build to the new use cases because they're not predictable.
And if I may add, just 100% agree, Maria, and if I may just add one thing to exactly what you said is, as Maria said, the old ways of let's build it, make significant investments and hope that they will come, creating a lot of tech debt has not really resulted or generated the returns on investments that CSPs and telcos have been anticipating. In this new world, and this world of everything as a service, where you are essentially decomposing the various levels of your enterprise, it's all about bringing them into pieces. So I learn, so I understand what my customers value the most, in with what experience, so I can build on that, and my infrastructure and the underlying enablers will evolve with what the market is telling me they want. So I always say continuous innovation, incremental but continuous innovation, and decomposing the enterprise so you're recomposing it in response to what market is asking you for and what feedback the market is giving you on the services and value props you bring to the market. I hope that answers the question that was on audience. Any other any questions, or I can bring a question that's top on my mind if there are no other questions from the audience. So I will ask a very hard question because, again, so it's a mindset shift. It's really around how companies operate. It is an enterprise-wide transformation, really, to realize the value. But if I were to ask you, maybe Mike, what would be that square zero, that first starting point that would be the foundation to get the organization aligned behind the need for this transformation? What would that first thing you would tell a CEO to do? What would that be?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's so company and company journey dependent, but let me try to generalize what might be a decent answer around that. And I think another, as you were asking the question, Golnar, another one snuck in, which is I think related to this question about should CSPs take an all-in approach, like just go all into telecom SaaS, and what would that look like? And you're talking about transformation. I think the way we look at this is it's not necessary to do some sort of all-in, change everything around globally around an entire CSP, the entire network services all at once. I think what's really important is to look for a marketplace, a customer base that happens to overlap well with your current enterprise customer base, where you have other third-party, either they're OEMs of equipment or they're a cloud partner that you've been working with really closely, or an edge type player, services player, systems integration that you can co-innovate with. And so the suggestion I would give to a CEO is that even if you picked one, say like connected healthcare in the home, if you picked one marketplace and went and learned what it would look like to send medical equipment into the home, have the telemetry from that and patient wearables and things and so forth, wirelessly connected in the home, and then over the air back to the surgeon and so forth. Maybe when this person's out and about in the city, in New York City, go do that. Go run a pilot, run a test, learn for yourselves about this. Set it up as a market pilot that's complete, though. It's not a market pilot of just one element. It's a market pilot of the value proposition to the end customer and to the enterprise market that customer is in. Do that, co-invest, spread the risk. Everyone's going to want to learn from that pilot. And then the learnings that you get from that, though, from what I've learned so far, it doesn't sound like it, but those learnings will be the same as the connected factory, connected mining, smart buildings, precision agriculture. They are going to be the same technology issues that you're solving to get to the healthcare one. So, that'd be the place to start. Start someplace where you have a strong customer base and a market need and some good partners with some deep pockets too that can help you fund this, and give it a go and learn something.
Yeah, I'd like to say a little bit, I'd like to say a little bit too in conjunction with what Michael is saying. I totally agree to focus on Telco SaaS on the future exploration of services. I think once you perfect that, that's probably the pocket of expansion. If you want to expand your business, be part of that innovation and be mainstream and in that innovation stream, eventually the learnings that you get from that can carry back into your mainstream network. I don't recommend doing a full, rip and replace right away. I think you start exploring with these new advanced services. It's a way to gain new monetization opportunities with these new services that you're launch, and expand and eventually it will become a mainstream part of your deployment.
Well, thank you, Mike and Maria. I think we're almost we're out of time. I just want to thank our audience from wherever you're joining around the world. I hope you found this discussion insightful. If you have any other questions or would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to any of us, either on Nokia's SaaS landing page or on EY's. We work very closely together, ready to help you with the most difficult challenges in this space. Thank you for your time. And again, Mike and Maria, thank you for joining me and for all your insights.
You're welcome.
Thank you too, Golnar.
Have a lovely day.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you both.